All right, let me turn this light on so it's a little brighter.
Okay. How's everything over there?
It's going good. We just finished an intern meeting. So talking about the blending of the technical aspects, the tactical, the skill, mechanics, game strategy, the physical, and the psychological. How all those pieces combine with the to basically create ultimate health and performance for athletes.
Cool. Thank you for your time, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you want to talk about today?
So, first, can you introduce yourself, like for the coaches in Taiwan?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Zach Dechant. I am a strength and conditioning coach or director of baseball performance at TCU, which is Texas Christian University. I've been here for 15 years. Prior to that, I was with the Anaheim Angels for 2 years. So everything is baseball oriented.
Cool. I saw a lot of is it like basketball, football, that kind of stuff on your Instagram?
Yeah, so I used to train football. I played college football, and I trained football up until COVID, basically. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, but in reality, I train baseball athletes, very similar to track athletes, right? We jump a lot. We're gonna throw implements. We're gonna get them fast, powerful, strong. So we train them. I mean, we take pieces of every sport and try to blend those together holistically to create the best athlete we can.
Yeah. So today's question kind of based on what I saw on your Instagram and what you said on other podcasts.
Yeah. So sorry, you cut out there for me. You cut out for a second there. What did you say now?
So today's question will be based on the thing the thing you post on Instagram and maybe other things you talked on the other podcast.
Yeah, absolutely fine. Go ahead.
So the first thing I was caught my eye was you post a lot of pre-game lift, right, on your Instagram. So the pre-game lift basically was the same day on the game day, right? 8 hours before you posted, right?
Yes.
So why would you do a lift on the game day?
So with baseball, obviously you know how many times baseball plays a game in a year, right? So at the professional level, they're playing every single day. High school during the summer, these kids are playing 4 or 5 times a week a lot of times. The biggest thing that we need with our youth, our high school athletes, our college athletes is consistency in the weight room. And that's what often gets lost is you play so much that you lose the consistency. And when you don't have that consistency, soreness starts to creep in. We get increased stiffness. And if you stay on track and keep your lifting consistent, you don't have that problem. And baseball isn't generally fatiguing enough, especially as a position player. It's not fatiguing enough that we can't do a light lift to stimulate the body. And when I say light, I don't necessarily mean lightweight. I'm talking about volumes. If we have a low volume lift, we can stimulate the body so that it honestly performs at a little bit higher level sometimes. But we just need to maintain consistency. All of our lifts are very non-fatiguing, so we're not trying to make guys tired with these things. But we stay on track. I'll give you an example. One of the biggest problems I saw in professional baseball, and then when I first got to TCU, pitchers, your relief pitchers, would possibly throw this weekend. You'd have a coach say, "Hey, we're going to need him this weekend a lot. Let's not have him lift." And so he wouldn't lift. And then he wouldn't throw, right? Your starter would go something like that, and he would never throw. And then they'd say, well, he'll throw tomorrow. Let's not lift him. And then he wouldn't throw. And before you know it, it was 10 days and the kid hadn't lifted. And then what happens? He lifts and he gets super sore and he complains to coach. And then the coach says, don't lift him. We can't have him sore. He's, and I eliminated that problem by saying we are going to be consistent with our training, whether it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or however we set it up. I will adjust the workout to the stress for the day, but we are going to be in there and be consistent regardless. So we can adjust the workout very easily on a game day, but we're still going to come in and do that stuff.
Okay. But so this is for baseball, right?
Yes.
The way you program this is because the game that baseball play was like so many. But how about like if it's like football? The game was like every Saturday or every Sunday.
So in that case, if we had football, no, I wouldn't, because the stresses are extremely high. That's why football only plays one game a week. So you're facing a ton of stress. There's no need to lift on a game day because you have the entire week to get your training sessions in. That's not the case with baseball because oftentimes we play 5 games a week.
Okay, got it, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I also saw a lot of like in-season programming, like heavy safety bar split squat, and a lot of front squat. Like,
yes.
Why is it like safety bar split squat, and why is it like front squat instead of back squat?
So the reason, and for your coaches, I wrote a book called Movement Over Maxes. That's essentially what our foundation program is. So every athlete that comes into our program, they go through that foundation program. And we teach the squat pattern as a front squat. One of the reasons that we use the front squat so much is because the incidence of pars fractures in our youth athletes. Pars fractures are essentially a stress fracture in the lumbar spine. So from over-rotation, well, I shouldn't say from over-rotation. Our athletes, our youth athletes, our high school athletes, so teenage athletes, I should say, get pars fractures because they play so much. They don't have good strength. They don't have good skill a lot of times. They over-rotate on their swings. They take a ton of swings. They can't control their pelvis. They have no spinal stability, no core stability, trunk stability, whatever you want to call it. And so you're constantly ramming these vertebrae together. That's what creates a stress reaction and eventually a stress fracture. And it's because of rotation and extension from those vertebrae hitting each other.
Yeah.
And the back squat often puts our athletes in more extension. So a front squat eliminates that problem a lot of times because you can't go into extension because the weight's pulling you down. So you have to create extension through muscle activation instead of the other way, which you athletes squat down, and you've seen athletes do a back squat bad 100,000 times, right?
Yeah.
They muscle up a back squat in a horrible technique and still get it up, but you can't do that on a front squat. If you do, you end up dropping the bar. And so the front squat for our athletes and our purposes was a lot healthier on spines and backs. So that's why we choose to go with the front squat as our foundational movement pattern. Now, to answer the second piece of your question, which was the hand-assisted split squat, that is what our advanced athletes move to after they are strong enough. So when they've been in the program a long enough duration, they will move to that hand-assisted split squat, and that's all they train. They do not squat anymore. We've already found that they have enough strength, and so we essentially try to build power. That becomes their emphasis, power development. And we use heavy weight with that to create a stimulus for our jumps that happen after that. We use heavy weight. Sometimes we use lightweight, and we do it really fast, but that's the movement that they go to when they advance out of the foundation program, essentially.
Cool. So I saw the same come from Instagram. So the safety bar split squat, you usually like the split squat was like usually so heavy. Is there like like how heavy would they go?
Yeah. So we actually use supra maximal with the split squat, which means they are going heavier than they can actually lift. And the reason we're doing that is because super maximal eccentrics help to build, essentially it's used for power development. We can stimulate, we only use 1 rep on these exercises, but they will use 110 to 120% above their max. So if their max is, let's say their max is 100 pounds, which obviously for our guys much more, but 100 pounds, they actually have to use 110 to 120 pounds. And we go down as slow as we can, resisting, because you can handle more eccentrically than you can concentrically. So we can handle more going down than you can going up. So we make them fight that and resist the eccentric as hard as they can. And then they can use their hand to stand up. And then from there, we go and we utilize those turned on motor units in our jumps. So we do ballistic jumps, we do throws, we do reactive jumps. The program is built around power development, and we use those heavy lifts to turn on the motor units. And then once they're turned on, we want to use them in our powerful movements.
So like post-activation potentiation, right?
Yeah, essentially that's kind of the gist. Yes.
Cool. That was so 110 or 120%, right?
Yes.
So based on what I saw on your Instagram, your athlete was like so strong, man.
So yeah, they're pretty strong. So I've had guys that can go with that lift for 100%. I've had guys that have gone up over 500 pounds, 500 to 600 pounds, somewhere in that range. Yes.
Split squat?
Yeah. Single leg. Yeah. That split squat, hand assisted. That's using hands.
But there's always going to be like debate about how heavy should they squat, right? Usually there's going to be like 2 times body weight. So if it's like a single leg squat, probably like half of the weight, right? Or a little bit more.
You'd be surprised, just because you're still using both your legs. It's just that they're split apart. Yeah. But you can handle a lot. You could probably handle about as much on that split squat with your hands as you can in a hand-assisted squat. You'd be very surprised. So I'm not worried about how much weight they handle in that, because the goal of the program is power development. I'm only using it for 1 rep. They might have 3 total sets of 1 rep. So the goal isn't, we're not using a ton of energy to build strength. It's to build power development, right? So that's kind of the difference too.
Just for stimulation.
It's just for stimulation, yes. I can't do that with my incoming athletes, my young athletes. We can't handle a front squat or a back squat for that type of weight. It's too dangerous.
Cool. So there's another post on Instagram talk about like vertical integration, about like periodization, right?
Yeah.
So why vertical integration?
Yes. So just to give your listeners and everybody on today what vertical integration is. Vertical integration is basically we're keeping all pieces of the program in at all times. We're only changing the volumes. So instead of a program that does strength and then hypertrophy, or hypertrophy, then strength, then power, and we're working each one in separate blocks over the course of 4 to 6 weeks, the problem becomes that when you don't do something for a long time, you have to reintroduce it at lesser volumes and intensities and try to regain what you might have lost. Well, with vertical integration, we don't lose anything. And the biggest factor is really speed. So all sports are built around speed and power. And if we use that block system where we said hypertrophy and then strength and then power for this 4 to 6 weeks, and then eventually we get out here to speed, well, if we haven't been doing our speed work, we've lost a lot of those gains, because you can lose speed gains in as short as 7 days. And so in order to keep ourselves ready and in order to be able to adapt at all times to anything that we want, We have to keep all pieces in the program at all times. We just change the volumes. So if I need my guys to be stronger, I need to get stronger, we still do a little speed work, we do a little power work, and then we're going to do more on the strength side. If I need speed development, I see a problem in our program, we're not fast enough, we're going to do a lot of speed, then we're going to do a little power and a little strength. We want to maintain all those other pieces, but we're going to take most of our adaptation energy and send it to one or two different qualities.
So it's like, if it's like preseason, if I want to work on max strength, so the max strength would be like more. The volume for max strength would be like more. But if it's like in-season training, if I want to like improve their speed, so the speed side would be like more, right?
Exactly. Yes. Everything's present all the time. We're going to do it all. It's just we can change the volumes of how much we're actually doing to one or two different qualities to emphasize those a little bit more.
Cool. So the next question would be like, I saw this come from Instagram, and you post like you don't do a lot of like Olympic lifting. Mm-hmm. Instead of Olympic lifting, you do a lot of like bounding, speed work, jumping.
Yep.
Like, can you tell like the coaches in town about why?
Yeah, so the Olympic lifts for us, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, if you want the truth. Olympic lifts, they take a long time to teach. Often they take a long time to utilize enough weight to actually matter in power improvement or power development. A lot of my athletes have never Olympic lifted before, which can be beneficial, but it can often take a long time to train and teach those.
Yeah.
For me, it's way more time efficient with a large group because I have 50 athletes sometimes at one time. I can get those improvements faster and with less time teaching in med ball throws, in jumps, in speed development, and we are more specific to their actual sport because their sport isn't played with a barbell. So I can get very specific in speed work, in jumping, in med ball throws. We can train those things that train the exact same thing that the Olympic lifts train, but we can do it more specific to the actual sport, to the movement patterns, to the speeds, to the velocities that happen in sport.
So the same concept goes with like basketball, like football, right? So if I want to improve my basketball player or my football player on speed or like vertical jump, maybe not like Olympic lifting, maybe like more bounding or more acceleration, that would help more, right?
Yeah, you could use it with any athlete. Now, I'm not saying the Olympic lifts are bad. I love the Olympic lifts. I used to be trained in them, but you can achieve the same, if not better, benefits on field from speed, jumps, and throws versus Olympic lifting, right? Olympic lifting is it can create some general power. Sure, there's good things about it, but I can be much more specific to what an athlete actually needs on field by doing the stuff on field.
Yeah. So basically, like, if I'm gonna train like a basketball team, and what if I just don't teach them how to Olympic lift? The way I just teach them how to accelerate, teach them how to bounding, and do some maybe like heavy lifting and like post activation potential and sprinting. That will work, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that we utilize in place of Olympic lifts are our trap bar jumps. So we use loaded jumps all the time. It's going to be very similar to the Olympic lift. And a lot of times with my guys, because there's not a learning curve with technique, they can use heavier weights faster in a trap bar jump than they can in an Olympic lift. And again, we're seeing faster speeds because they're jumping versus just trying to propel the object, which is the barbell in Olympic lifts. They're jumping, and we can get some of the same exact benefits from that in a way faster time frame, way more than Olympic lifting. Yeah, I'm fully on board with basketball doing that. I mean, there's so many ways. There's so many ways to do what we do, right?
Yeah,
you have to what's optimal, because there's ideal and there's optimal. Ideal is, well, Olympic lifts are really good. They're beneficial. They've increased power. But the optimal may be that it's not time efficient for me to teach it to 40 hours. The optimal may be that the kids don't know how to clean, so it's going to take us 6 months to learn the technical aspect and to get strong enough to actually observe the physical aspects of it.
Yeah.
And so you have to be optimal for your situation.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Because there's like coaches in Taiwan, when they like talk about like improving their vertical or like improving their speed, they always go to like Olympic lifting, maybe like hang high, pull, clean, or snatch, that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that it's not good, but it's like you have to get so heavy.
Yeah.
So they have the adaptation, right?
Right. Well, the other thing too with the human body, it's the said principle. Specific adaptations come from the imposed demands, and there's nothing more specific in trying to create a higher vertical jump than jumping.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to adapt to that. So if we need our players to be faster, to be more powerful, to jump higher, to throw a ball farther, these things happen on the lighter side or the faster side of the force velocity spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Doing those things are going to create specific adaptation. And so that's the same thing with heavy squats. Eventually, heavy squats don't give us that much return. It's great for building robustness and maybe building some more strength, but eventually that doesn't transfer to anything that happens on the field, because the stuff that happens on the field happens way, way faster.
Yeah. Since you brought about the force velocity curve and the speed on the court, I want to ask about your thoughts on over speed training, like using a band, maybe put it on a rack and use it to jump, assistant jump.
So with the overspeed stuff, I actually think that's good. We use it with our players for jumps. The one place I would be hesitant or I don't use it is with speed. So I never pull guys faster than they can normally run. Everything we do is resisted. The only way I would do it in speed development is with what they have now, a 1080 sprint, which is essentially it's a computer that can regulate how much tension they're pulling you with, because traditionally when you pull an athlete with a band or something really, really fast, you can't regulate and monitor how fast, how much overspeed they're doing. And so what you have happen is you pull them forward, they're planting in front of their hips, you put a massive stress through their hamstring, and a lot of times the result is an injury or a strain. And so we don't do overspeed sprinting. One other way you could do it is on a slight decline hill.
Yeah.
That's one way, or with the wind. I know Dan Paff, he's a sprint coach at Altus in Arizona. Dan Paff likes it downhill or with the wind as much as you can, but that's giving you very, very minimal effect. And so what you see a lot of times with overspeed sprinting is guys just get pulled way too hard.
Yeah.
And hamstring injuries occur. But on the jumping side, I absolutely love it. I think it's a great method to use.
But don't you think it's like the force applied to the ground was much lesser than what we usually do?
Yeah, that's why I think it's great. I actually think it can be very good for beginners to learn some of the to learn some of the mechanics and like the reactivity that's involved in jumping. They can apply force a little bit. I shouldn't say force faster. They are applying it faster. Their ground contact time, they can apply it faster. They can learn how to pull their toes up and how to have full foot contacts, because they can jump higher with it. They've got less weight. And I think it can be good for beginners as well.
Cool. So how about what if it's like athletes for more advanced, would it help it like jump higher?
So we, yes, we do use that with our advanced guys. We do it in the French contrast. So French contrast is basically a heavy loaded movement to stimulate motor units. Then we're going to go into a jump, something elastic, and then we're going to go into a something ballistic. Generally, like I would use trap bar jumps there. Something that's a moderate weight that we can move pretty fast, and then we finish with the fastest movement of all, which would be a band assisted jump. We use that French contrast with our advanced guys all the time. Yes, I think it's great for all athletes.
Thanks, man. Thanks. So I saw like a lot of crawling,
yep,
and like rotation movement.
Uh-huh.
And there's your program called Movement Over Max, right?
Yep.
So what is exactly the 3D movement you would like prepare for your athlete?
So what 3D movement prep is it's essentially our dynamic warm-up. And it goes through our traveling skills, specifically our traveling skills, which are our run patterns, our karaoke, our low gallop, and our high gallop. And it details how we use those traveling patterns to develop more skills and create coordination and spatial awareness, how we teach our athletes how to move in space. And we use those patterns in every direction. So the karaoke pattern, you typically think of it as being lateral karaoke, but we use it forward. We use it backward. We can add hops into it. We can add jumps and skips. We can create more width going side to side. That's actually one of the patterns we utilize today. Our kids have become very good at backward karaoke. Well, now we're going to use it to gain space side to side so that they have to create width every time that they move. It details all those traveling patterns and how we build those patterns from beginner to advanced throughout our dynamic warm-up, essentially. Because one of the biggest questions I used to get asked was, what do I do for a warm-up? How do you warm up your guys? What do we do for a pregame warm-up? And so this is one of the ways that we can challenge neuroplasticity, which is the body's ability to gain new skills. And everybody thinks it stops at the age of 12 or 13, but that's not true at all. And so we want to challenge our athletes in those warm-up periods to develop new movement solutions and new movement skills. And that's really all 3D movement prep is learning how to move your body all over the place.
So it's like increasing the, like, add different things to their training so they won't get hurt, right? Increasing the variety of training.
Yeah, and it also becomes extensive plyometrics. It becomes our extensive jumps. When we start to build in some of our 1-2 and 2-1, 2-2 patterns, which are essentially hops and skips, when we build in those, it becomes extensive plyometrics in our traveling skills. So that kind of eliminates two birds with one stone.
Okay. We mentioned a lot of like post-activation potentiation or like French contrast training, right?
Yep.
Today. So like how would you program it for like in season or off season wise?
So for us, I use it. I really only use it for our advanced guys. Those guys, when they get in season, like we talked about, they do the heavy stuff. But when I eliminate strength work, eventually we eliminate strength work, heavy strength work, and everything becomes power-based for those guys. We use our pitch arc or an immovable object, I should say. We use an immovable object, and we have them push against that object. It's essentially an isometric. It's a 6-second isometric, and they build up as much tension and try to create as much force, whether it's a squat, whether it's a push-up position, as much force as possible to turn on the motor units again, and then they go and they do their power work. That's how we handle it in the in-season. In the off-season, we talked about it already. It's usually those heavy eccentrics and isometrics, and then we go into their power work. So once we get into the in-season, we don't use the weight as much. We use a lot more isometrics against immovable objects to create that PAP first.
So it's like ISO and then max jump. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. ISO and max jump. Because you're turning on the motor units with the isometrics, and then we're going to display it. We're going to express it in power development.
Man, that was so smart. So smart.
I steal that from other people. Don't worry. That's what good coaching is. You have to steal ideas, right?
Yeah. The way you answered the question and the thing you mentioned, from all this stuff you told me, it was like you were so knowledge. The knowledge, it was like, man, it really is an honor to talk to you, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You don't have to be that honored to talk to me, though. I'm happy to do it. The other thing I would say on PAP is that at the younger level, the high school level, a lot of coaches, we talked about it already with workouts before games. I challenge our high school coaches and say, hey, you can use your workout before a game day as a warm-up. So have the kids go in, do their 3 sets of 1 or 3 sets of 2 on a trap bar deadlift, have them do a jump, have them do a med ball throw, something that's explosive, and they'll have the best batting practice of their life. Because that, in essence, is PAP right there. You're turning on motor units.
Yeah.
You're activating the central nervous system, and then the kids go out. That is their warm up, and then they'll crush balls in BP.
Sorry, continue, man.
No, I'm sorry. We've all gone out. We've all gotten into done a throwing program or went out and throwed with a pitcher or somebody, done something athletic after we lifted, whether it was going out and dunking basketballs or shooting 3-pointers or whatever the case. After you've lifted and you've been like, man, I feel really, really good. I'm super loose. I'm warmed up. My nervous system feels amazing. And that's the same effect that kids get from a quick workout, a 15 or 25-minute workout before they go out to BP to play a game.
But how long or how much time before the game, or if it's game day lift, and if it's for basketball, because I'm working with a pro basketball team right now.
Yep.
So if I want to do it for my basketball player, how much time should I give them the rest before the game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have a specific answer for you. The more rest they have, the more you could do, right? But you always got to be concerned about fatigue. So the game day lift is really just to stimulate, not annihilate. It's only stimulation. So to me, if it's going to be close to game time or close to pregame, that takes over as your warm-up. That becomes your warm-up. And you can get 20 or 25 minutes of work in and prepare them for what's coming up very easily. The thing is chase intensity and chase speed instead of volume.
Yeah.
Never chase volume. So for us, a typical game day workout for our position players would be 2 warm-up sets on the trap bar, and then we're doing 2 to 3 sets of basically 1 or 2 reps at most. And we have guys that might go up to 90%, but generally we're probably in that 60 to 80% range. The barbell's moving fast, and then we might go over and do 1 jump of some variety and come back, superset those back and forth. We do a med ball throw, and we're essentially out the door, and that's it.
Cool. Last question, and I'm gonna let you go. Okay.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on velocity-based training, and how would you implement it into your program?
So, I think velocity-based training is great. I think the best thing about using something to track velocity is the objective, immediate feedback that you get for your athletes, because that drives intent. And when you drive intent, you can drive speed, power, and strength gains. I should say power and strength. That's the beauty of VBT. You don't have to necessarily use it as it's been prescribed, in that you know, this range here, 0.7 to 1.0 or whatever works speed strength or strength speed. And you don't necessarily have to, you don't have to use it in that aspect. You can use it in all your training, and that objective immediate feedback helps your athletes to drive intent. How we use it in season with our position players in the foundation program is we use it to auto-regulate. So I set zones. So I set a speed for the day. If they're in that speed, that weight is fine. If they jump out of that speed above it, that means they're probably a little bit they're operating at a higher output for the day, right? They're a little bit more recovered than we thought, or whatever the case is. They're stronger than we thought for the day. So we'll add weight to get back in that zone. If they drop below that zone, that's telling you they're fatigued. And so it's too much weight. And so we'll drop the weight a little bit so that they come back up into that zone. So it auto-regulates their weight based on how they feel. And that is how we use it in season. And I can do it that way because, we have, I've got 6 Tendo units for one, but I do it that way because it maintains strength very, very easily. And I don't have to use I don't have to bang a bunch of heavy weight. So we usually stick in ranges of about 40 to 70%. Sometimes we'll use accommodating resistance in the form of chains, but we can maintain strength during that time with our starters super, super easy, and not have to use heavy weight to beat your body up if you want the truth, because there's a kind of an anatomical cost with heavy ass weight, right?
Yeah.
And so that's part of the process. Just outside of the nervous system fatigue, you have that anatomical cost and joint health and everything like that. So lighter weights, lighter weights we found to be a little bit more friendly.
So is it like, if it's like let's say maybe like Tuesday or like Wednesday, and today we're going to be focusing on like speed strength, is everybody's like the speed?
Is it the same?
Yeah, is the speed zones the same?
Yeah, so what we'll do is I'll set let's say an example would be from 0.7 to 0.8. We'll set that and say on the Tendo unit, I'll give them a starting weight usually, all right? So let's say it's the first day of a 4-week block. I will give them a starting weight, and I'll say your speed needs to be in between 0.7 and 0.8. After that first set, they'll know whether they need to increase or decrease weight.
Yeah.
Then they'll be in that zone, all right? They'll operate in that zone. So let's say 4 or 5 sets in, they start busting out of that zone. That's telling you that they're becoming activated. They're a little stronger than we thought today, so they're going to increase their weight to come back in that zone. Yes, everybody will use the same zone. And then once we have the first day out of the way, they know for the rest of the cycle what weight to start at. That was in that zone the last time. They'll start with what they finished with, essentially, and see if they can increase or decrease. But it drives output. It drives competition. The objective feedback it creates output for your guys.
Got it, man.
Measuring anything, velocity, whether it's timing your speed, measuring jumps on a just jump or a force plate or something like that, that objective feedback drives intent. They've done studies on it that the group that had objective feedback immediately far greatly outperformed over the short term and long term. The group didn't have objective feedback.
Yeah.
And it's embedded testing, because then you don't have to test your athletes all the time, because you're constantly getting numbers and data and information to reevaluate your program instead of waiting 16 weeks and saying, okay, let's max and let's see if you got stronger. That doesn't test.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. So, like, I know you got like speed course and books, right? So, can you tell the coaches in Taiwan about your work, like what the education and the books?
Yeah.
And where can they contact you?
Yeah, so social media is just my name, Zach Dechant. I have a website, zachdechant.com, and then Twitter, Instagram, where I post most of my stuff. Those are both handled at Zach Dechant. Movement Over Maxes is the program that details. It's the book that details our foundation program. So every athlete that comes into our baseball program goes through they learn how to jump, they learn how to land, they learn the sprint basics that we teach them. They learn athletic positions, and then the 5 big movement patterns. Those come with the programs. We actually detail the program itself. So you get programs with that. And then on top of that, I've written the 8-week speed course, which details kind of a progression into speed over 8 weeks, as well as 3-day movement prep, which we already talked about. Teaches coaches how to build and create warm-ups, right? That develop your athletes. It comes with 10 different warm-up templates that I use. And I think it's got 150 plus exercise video demonstrations. So it's really just to educate coaches on how to build and use that time, how to build their warm-ups and use that time to create better movers and better athletes.
Thanks, man. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
I really love the way you answered the question, and the content was really good. I'm gonna do a broadcast next week to translate all of this into Mandarin. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Eric.
Learned a lot. Appreciate your time. I know you're busy. Thank you for the time.
Yep. Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, that's all for today.